This video will discuss the Elementalist in the Gloomhaven board game. As hinted at by its name, the Elementalist is going to be generating and consuming elements to boost its cards. The Elementalist thrives as a ranged damage dealer with more limited movement options. There are a ton of modular elemental effects that can be overwhelming at first, but with some practice and experience with the cards, we can understand how element generation in the current turn can be used on the next turn. With a huge amount of elements being generated and consumed, it is useful to look ahead to see which cards we may want to build around, as well as balancing generation and consumption. At level 1, the Elementalist has a variety of very useful cards. For instance, there is a reusable Move 2 plus generated element. Stoking Hail consumes an ice element to stun. Shaping the Ether also consumes ice to stun, and can consume an earth to target 2. Pure Augmentation and Raw Enhancement can both deal up to 5 damage by consuming the appropriate elements, as well as being the best source of movement of all the cards. If we look at the later large damage cards such as Obsidian Shards and Winter's Edge, they also deal at max 5 damage. That being said, I think the primary way that the Elementalist scales with levels is with increasing elemental generation. At level 1, the only way to generate 2 elements in one turn is with loss cards, but later cards generate elements as non-losses. With all this in mind, I think the core cards at later levels are going to be all the cards with 2 element generations with non-losses, which are both level 4 cards and level 5 cards. This can be achieved by skipping both the level 6 and level 8 cards, which don't have amazing choices. Here are the cards I would take at each level. Level 2. Both cards are nice AoE damage cards, but ultimately we have to ask ourselves if we are going to be consuming more fire or ice long term. I personally think the stun effects of consuming ice with Shaping the Ether and Stoking Hail make Crystallizing Blast the card choice. Level 3. I think both level 3 cards are strong. Burial at max deals 6 times 3 damage plus Curse and Immobilize, although the defined area of effect makes the card more situational. Chain Lightning at max deals 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2, which equals 14 damage with Pierce 2. I think this is up to your preference, although I think the dark generation of Burial gives it a slight edge due to the dark consumption on later cards. Level 4. As I stated earlier, I plan on ultimately taking both of these cards. Primal Duality has the Move 2 with dark and light generation that synergizes extremely well with Vengeance at level 7 and Eternal Equilibrium at level 9. Gravel Vortex has double generation of Wind and Earth, which is consumed by both level 5 cards, as well as Shaping the Ether for targeting 2 for stuns in conjunction with Ice. At level 4, I would start by taking Gravel Vortex, since we don't need the dark element immediately. Level 5. I will also be taking both of these cards eventually. Both have non-loss double element generation on the bottom, as well as the best non-loss damage on the top. Obsidian Shards can deal 5 damage with target 2, and Winter's Edge can straight up deal 5 damage without needing elemental consumption. The Pierce 4 can be really helpful in certain scenarios. We will take Winter's Edge first since Obsidian Shards requires fire, which we don't consistently generate with the cards we have. Level 6. I'm not super impressed with either of these cards. Simulacrum is a cool concept, but a lost summon that only increases our targeting range feels underwhelming, especially when we have lots of long-range options. The top also requires 4 elements to get up to the 5 damage target 2. Eye of the Hurricane similarly has an okay move option on the bottom, and an actually decent loss attack on top. However, we aren't really needing the extra damage as a loss, and I think going back to level 4 and taking Primal Duality will better enable our elemental needs moving forward. Level 7. Both Pragmatic Reinforcement and Vengeance are amazing cards. For Pragmatic Reinforcement, consuming light on top here allows allies to recover cards, and the bottom can consume fire and dark to get 5 attack plus poison and wound. Plus, both the top and bottom always gives experience. However, I'm going to take Vengeance ultimately for the area of effect auto kill on top that consumes dark. Ultimately, auto killing enemies is better than damage and also contributes to card efficiency. This is our first card that synergizes with the bottom of Primal Duality. Level 8. Elemental Aegis is purely a defensive card that may be useful if you're playing the Elementalist in a way that needs him to be much tankier, but we are going for more of a damage and element efficient build. The top of Volatile Consumption is fine, but consuming an extra element each turn to deal 1 extra damage as a loss doesn't seem worth it to me. The move options on the bottom are also not the greatest, so I prefer going back to level 5 and taking obsidian shards. Level 9. Ethereal Manifestation would be taken for its bottom. Summons do not last long enough to truly be that useful, in my opinion. The flexibility of doing a bunch of different actions based on element consumptions could be really useful, if not for the fact that Eternal Equilibrium is an amazing card. Eternal Equilibrium does 4 damage to all enemies within range 3, which is an insane effect. Not only that, but you curse and muddle all of the targeted enemies, which is also incredibly good. Take Eternal Equilibrium. At the end, my card build is Pure Augmentation, Raw Enhancement, Stoking Hail, Infernal Vortex, Gravel Vortex, Primal Duality, Obsidian Shards, Winter's Edge, Vengeance, and Eternal Equilibrium. This build has 5 cards used primarily for their bottom action, and 5 cards for their attacks on top. However, some of the cards designated for their bottom or top action have really good actions on their opposite side that are situationally useful. The elements generated and consumed are balanced overall.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.